Is Royce Lewis still on track to be the next MLB superstar, or is he a little bit closer to being the next Adalberto Mondesi? Today, I'm going to be deep diving the Minnesota Twins on today's action-packed episode of Locked On Fantasy Baseball.
You are Locked On Fantasy Baseball, your daily fantasy baseball podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, fantasy baseball fanatics, and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Baseball podcast, brought to you by the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. As always, we're your number one source of fantasy baseball knowledge, and thank you for making us your first listen each and every day. I'm your host, Dominic Martino, flying solo today. If you're watching on YouTube and you haven't already, hit that little bell below. It will subscribe you to the channel and give you a notification every time we drop a new episode. And if you're listening on a platform like Apple or Spotify that allows 5-star ratings and reviews, we would truly appreciate it if you could do that for us as well. And lastly, but most importantly to Matt and I, give us a chance through the Subtext platform. Through Subtext, it's an in-depth, personalized experience through text message alerts right to your phone, offering so much more than we can in this 30-minute podcast. And if you are interested in joining us on Subtext, you can find the link in the bio wherever you're listening or watching, and it's also available on any of our social media platforms. And this episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. Download the app today and use the code LOCKEDONMLB to win $50 instantly when you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. All right, guys, I already mentioned it at the top. We're doing the Minnesota Twins team review today, and we're doing the kind of mediocre teams right now. You know, we're doing teams that either underachieved or wasn't kind of just middled through things, and as those Minnesota Twins fit the bill, they finished their season with 82 wins and 80 losses. I can't really say if they over or underperformed. I kind of feel like they were spot on. This is kind of who we thought they were going to be. They have some good starting pitchers. They have a couple of good bats. And I think there's no better way to jump into the Twins than let's actually get into the players here. Let's talk some Royce Lewis. Royce Lewis, I think going forward, he needs to be the best hitter on this team. There's not really much going on. They invested a lot in Carlos Correa, who we'll get to later. There's a lot invested in Byron Buxton, who we will also get to later. But they're old. I think they overpaid Correa. Buxton can't stay on the field. And it kind of seems that Royce Lewis is following suit. So Royce Lewis, 25 years old this past season. We had to pay a pretty penny for Royce Lewis, too. He was coming off the board as the 8th third baseman going into this past season. Pick 53. That was just so much. I wasn't doing it. That's pretty much a 4th-round pick the way you look at it. And Royce Lewis this year, he played 82 games. He had 292 at-bats. He had 40 runs. He had 16 doubles, 16 homers, 47 RBIs. He had 28 walks, 74 strikeouts, and he hit .233. Now, when Royce Lewis first, came up this year, he had played 8 games in the minors. He got the call. He looked really good through his first 2 games. I think he got hurt again and just came back from the injury and couldn't figure it out. He didn't look the same. Everything we had seen of Royce Lewis up until this past season was nothing but superstar level. So that's why I mentioned at the top. Are we still valuing Royce Lewis as a superstar going forward? I'm not. I wasn't last year, and I just said I won't do it next year. Royce Lewis, how much third did he actually play last year? So I'm curious what the position eligibility is going to look like. 51 games at third in 2024 for Royce Lewis, so he will retain that third base eligibility. The underlying stuff for Royce Lewis doesn't look as good as you would think, especially when it comes to batting average. They're looking at him as like a 248 kind of guy. He barrels the ball up well. He actually doesn't hit the ball as hard as you may think. I actually want to compare it to 2023. Yeah, didn't hit the ball that hard in 2023 either. The batting average was like a 265. Can Royce Lewis be a 270 hitter with 30 home runs, 25 plus home runs? Yeah, sure. But I don't know. I don't know if he's going to be as good as we have him pegged to be. Not that he doesn't have the talent. I just think the mix of being injured so often and let's look at him like a Jazz Chisholm without the speed. Yeah, so I think we should value him like that. I'll be taking Jazz Chisholm over him next year. Jazz Chisholm will have third base eligibility on most platforms next year. I'll have Jazz ranked higher than Royce Lewis. I think he's a nice scratcher. I think he's a nice, a scratch off ticket at not the end of drafts, but if you waited at third base or you want to spice it up at utility, if you played it safe, up until that point, I think we could take him there. But I'm not working that upside into the draft price. We did it last year. It was a mistake. I don't think we need to do it again this season. But I'm not going to spend all day on Royce Lewis, even though I probably couldn't. I think Matt might be a little jealous that I got the Royce Lewis episode or the Twins for this episode to talk about Royce Lewis. So still young. Just bottom line, still a young, talented player that we can take in drafts. But I think we just need to work it into our strategy. I don't think. I don't think we value him like crazy going forward because I don't even think he's going to steal a lot of bases. He's not super fast. It's not something that I don't think is going to be a huge part of his game going forward, especially with the injury. So at age 26, Royce Lewis can maybe be a 30 homer, 5 steal, 265 guy with decent plate discipline. I could see that being in the cards. So let's move on to the next side from this Minnesota Twins team. Let's talk Brooks Lee. And Brooks Lee is another guy, tale of different portions of the season. He looked good at certain points. He struggled at others, but we kind of expect that from a young rookie hitter, right? Only 23 years old. The Twins do a decent job with their young guys. On the season, it was 50 games for Brooks Lee in the bigs, 172 at-bats, 9 runs, 6 doubles, 1 triple, 3 homers, 27 RBIs, 3 steals, 11 walks to 27 strikeouts, and a .221 batting average. But even in the minors this past season, it was 35 games for Brooks Lee, 142 at-bats, 29 runs, 10 doubles, 8 homers, 30 RBIs, 2 steals, a .331 batting average. Brooks Lee is going to be interesting for next season. I think he's going to be a free 99 kind of play. I actually want to check the position eligibility because I know on Yahoo last year he had a good amount of position eligibility. So let's look at it like this. He played 10 games at second, 13 games at third, 27 at short. I believe Yahoo it's 10 games. CBS might be 15. ESPN, I'm not 100% sure. But Matt and I, we mainly focus on Yahoo. That's where we play most of our fantasy baseball. So he'll have it all. So this is the kind of guy like the Brendan Donovan, if you're a little bit older, the Michael Young, the Swiss Army knife kind of guy that, we'll take him with our last pick and we'll see where the thing goes. Because I think Brooks Lee is the kind of guy that could, figure it out, hit for a solid batting average. Depends where he's a guy that could hit ninth and have a lot of runs. He's got some speed, even though, the sprint speed wasn't, very highly touted this year at the underlying stats. I think he could be like, maybe like a 20 homer, 15 steal, 280 batting average, 275, 280 batting average kind of guy. It's a deeper league play. You're not taking him in your 10s. I think 12 mans, like he's, like I said, that kind of last pick bench player type of thing. But there's upside. There is upside here with Brooks Lee, so it's definitely a name to remember going into next season. Let's need this next guy. Let's talk about big money Carlos Correa. It's interesting, man. It's interesting for Carlos Correa because you know what? He secures the bag. He comes back to the Twins. And, there was a lot of people that were still, really, really high on Carlos Correa. It was an okay season, in 86 games, 319 at-bats, 55 runs, 20 doubles, 2 triples, 14 homers, 54 RBIs. He didn't steal a base, and he hit .310. I think Correa could be a good source of batting average. He's obviously got a little bit of pop in the bat. He's going to be 30 this upcoming season. The injuries – actually, he was pretty solid from 2021 to 2023 when it came to games played, but there's no upside here. It's just 20 to 25 homers. I think as long as Correa is healthy, he'll be a solid source of batting average. I think he'll be over 275. And then the runs and the RBIs is really going to depend on the team around him. And that Twins team around him was just super mediocre this year. I think unless we see some changes to the roster, they'll be very mediocre next year. We're going to get to starting pitching in a little bit. They have a few good starting pitchers. They have a few good bats, and that just means mediocrity. They don't really have, a superstar. Royce Lewis, I think, or Correa is supposed to be the superstar, or even along with Pablo Lopez, who we're going to get into later. And, the rest of the guys are just kind of okay. But let's pause things there. We got Byron Buxton, we got Willie Castro, and then we move into the starting pitchers. And I already mentioned Pablo Lopez. So make sure you stay locked on because we have those names and more coming up next. And guys, real quick, I want to talk to you about my friends over at Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the best way to get action on sports in over 30 states, including California, Florida, Georgia, and Texas. Prize Picks is the only real money daily fantasy platform with an injury insurance policy, so your lineups stay in play even if one of your players gets injured. If your player leaves in the first half and doesn't return, Prize Picks keeps your lineup live. Prize Picks is the best place to get real money sports action. Join over 10 million users and sign up today. Prize Picks puts its members first, so all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. When my picks hit, I can get my money in as quick as 15 minutes. Sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play your $5. You don't even need to sign up to win the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Make your pick in less than 60 seconds and turn your sports opinions into real money all season long on Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the best way to win real money this football season. Which players are going off and which ones aren't. Make your picks in less than 60 seconds and turn your sports opinions into real money all season long on Prize Picks. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day and you have to turn down the volume with all that shouting? Make the switch over to Locked On Sports Today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for your everyday to bring you the biggest stories without all that screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And then once again, guys, I want to talk to you about the Locked On Fantasy Baseball Podcast Diamond Club on the Subtext platform. It's going to be your ultimate fantasy baseball companion as this offseason continues to unfold. You're going to rely on Matt and I for our dynamic content. We're going to give you guys real-time alerts right to your phone, including regular rankings updates for this offseason. As I've been teasing, I've got a lot of work done on it, and I'm just about ready to put those out to you guys on Subtext. We're going to do way too early breakouts, sleepers, busts, and just so much more than you can get anywhere else this time of year. And we just want to talk fantasy baseball with you guys. I know a lot of you guys still love it, still want to talk about it. So Subtext is going to be the place to join us. Link is in bio wherever you're listening or watching. And all right, guys, let's jump back in. I want to go from one of the old vets to another one. Byron Buxton. Where do you begin with a guy like Byron Buxton? He reminds me, if you guys are familiar with SpongeBob, like, I broke my leg. He can't stay on the field. He's always hurt. When he does manage to stay on the field, he's usually doing something good for fantasy. Even this past year, 30 years old, Byron Buxton played 102 games, 355 at-bats, 62 runs, 27 doubles, 3 triples, 18 homers, 56 RBIs. He even threw in 7 steals, 20 walks to 99 strikeouts, and he hit 279. I don't think Buxton's going to cost anybody anything next year. He's not going to cost anybody anything. Will he play over 100 games again? My guess is as good as yours. This is actually the most games Byron Buxton has played since 2017. This past season. He's not reliable. If you can get him with your last pick and just throw him out there when he's healthy, like I said, he'll probably be doing something, whether it's hitting homers, stealing bases, scoring runs, because he did that pretty good this year too. Byron Buxton is just a good baseball player. We really wish a guy like him could have stayed healthy for more of his career, because you know what? He's made one All-Star game his whole career. And Byron Buxton's a guy that could have been in 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 All-Star games with the talent a guy like Byron Buxton has. He was the second pick by the Twins in the 2012 draft. I don't want to do a whole Byron Buxton thing, but it makes me sad to talk about him sometimes because it's a guy who just literally is one of the most talented players in the game and just can't put it together. But with that being said, from a fantasy standpoint, I'll take him last pick of the draft, or if you're in a 5 outfielder league and you're struggling to find an outfielder, I think you could look Buxton's way. In a 5 outfielder league, you probably actually go a little bit higher than one of your last picks. But I would throw the shot at him because, like I said, he's productive when out there. Let's move on to the last bat we're going to talk about with this Twins team. Let's talk a little Willie Castro. And Willie Castro is an interesting character because I believe that we all thought that Willie Castro was going to be better than he actually was this past season. In 2023, Willie Castro played 124 games, had 358 at-bats, 60 runs, 18 doubles, 5 triples, 9 homers, 34 RBIs, 33 steals, and he hit 257. Castro just took a step back in a lot of departments this season. He played more games. He played 158 games. He had 558 at-bats. The runs went up to 89. The doubles went up to 31. Triples stayed the same at 5. Homers went up to 12. 60 RBIs. The steals. He played that many more games, but he went from 33 steals in 2023, Willie Castro did, to 14 in 2024. And then the batting average dropped 10 points from 257 to 247 for Willie Castro. He's young. He's 27, or was 27 this past year. Will be 28 next year. I just wish he stole more bases because he has an interesting profile. Another guy like Brooks Lee, who I believe, I will double check it in a second, has that like Swiss Army knife eligibility. And Willie Castro is, around the 70th percentile in sprint speed. He's good defensively. Not a guy that I don't think ever is going to really take a step forward in batting average or power or anything like that. So Willie Castro, I think, kind of stays around where he is, like that 250 batting average. And the steals, that's the big thing. If he can get to the 30 steal threshold again with that good run total, then you're talking about a guy who becomes a bit more interesting in fantasy. I'm actually trying to pull up where he. Okay, wow. Look at this for Willie Castro, guys. This is a fun one. Willie Castro played 40 games at second, 27 at third, 56 at shortstop, and then he played 59 in the outfield. So wherever you play, Willie Castro will most likely have 4 positional eligibility. So it's just a shame that a guy like Willie Castro couldn't be more of a 10 to 15 homer guy and, a little better on the batting average. But Willie Castro, in those deeper leagues, he's definitely going to have play for sure, especially with all of that mix of eligibility. But guys, make sure, I'm going to be talking some Pablo Lopez, some Joe Ryan. We got the closer for the Twins. If you know, you know. And then we're going to talk about potentially the number 1 overall prospect in baseball, who also plays for the Minnesota Twins. Once again, those names and more coming up next. Guys, real quick, I want to talk to you about my friends over at FanDuel. With FanDuel, when you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. And guys, I'm a baseball guy. I'm even a basketball guy. But you know what? Football season is in full swing, and I'm a self-hating Giants fan. So bet against the Giants. Take the under everywhere. Money line, all that stuff. I can't. Neighbors is the only guy that I really like at all. So we'll stick with him. Other than that, though, let's go under on everything, and we're gonna head to FanDuel.com to do that today. All right, folks, this is probably the more fun part of this episode. So hopefully you've stuck around. And if you are here, watch till the end because these names are fantastic. Let's talk Pablo Lopez. And, I talk about my buddy on here a lot, my buddy Jonathan. Huge shout out to him. This is his boy. So we're going to give Pablo Lopez a thorough breakdown here. I like him. I really do. He's a talented pitcher. He has good stuff. He's an innings eater. But the problem is he's always been prone to give up too many runs. He gives up a lot of long balls. He gave up 26 homers this year, 24 the year before, and 21 homers in 2022 for Pablo Lopez. The ERA has, been well over 3 since 2020, where he really broke out. A 3.61 in 2020, a 3.75 in 2022, a 3.66 in 2023. We're up to a 4.08 this past year. And the 1 year in 2021 I didn't mention was a 3.07 ERA, but that kind of just looks more like the outlier. I think Pablo Lopez deep down is more of a Robbie Ray type than a guy that's going to take a step forward and give you that low 2s, high 3s ERA. I think Lopez sticks around that 3.5 to 4.10 ERA. He'll eat those innings. He'll do that for sure. He'll have starts where he looks like the best pitcher in baseball, go 9 innings, and just get it done. But even the strikeouts took a little bit of a step back this past season for Pablo Lopez. He pitched 185 innings. He had 198 strikeouts compared to 2023, where he threw 194 innings at 234 strikeouts. Even the whip went up to a 119 for Pablo Lopez this past season. And the FIP, the fielding independent pitching, which is an ERA indicator, was at a 3.65. And that's literally on par with Pablo Lopez's career FIP through 889 innings. Pablo Lopez was a guy that we projected a step forward for. Last year, we were taking him as the 9th starting pitcher overall, pick 37. I think it's hard to take a guy like him as your SP1 unless you're in like a 15. If you're in a 15, you're getting to that range where, all right, we can start thinking about Pablo Lopez. I'm as we're talking about this, I'm trying to grab my way too early rankings and tell you why I have Pablo Lopez at this time of year. I currently have Pablo Lopez ranked as my number 18 starting pitcher. So that puts him in there as a nice SP2, which, I think your SP1 would have had to been safe. If you take the Corbin Burns, if you take the Zach Wheelers, the guys like that, there's not many safe ones. But if you took a guy like that, I think Pablo Lopez will make a nice SP2. And that's where he's going to land. So I don't think we're drafting him next year with this guy can be, the SP1 in all of baseball, which I think a lot of us did think going into this, past season. So going into 2025, let's take a little bit of a step back and, just say, okay, a guy like this might not be able to take that step forward, that we thought. But, he's a really good starting pitcher, and he's somebody that we know is going to eat innings. So in a points league, he actually might move up in rankings. And let's even go further. I want to actually go a step further with a guy like Pablo Lopez, right? The repertoire. Let's even look at that, right? So Pablo Lopez's best pitch last year was his sweeper. Batters hit 173 against it. Batters this year hit 239 against his sweeper. Last year, Pablo Lopez's changeup, which he threw 21% of the time, got hit at a 257 clip. This year, he threw it 20% of the time, got hit at a 281 clip. So right there, you're seeing necessarily his sweeper and his changeup, which were his second and third most used pitch the last 2 years, got hit a little bit harder this past season. I think that caused the ERA to go up. He actually did better on his fastball. His fastball got hit at a 268 clip in 2023, got better in 2024, got hit at a 208 clip. So maybe he was focusing on the fastball. He was trying to get the fastball to work better for him, which it did. But that caused, the breaking stuff to take a step back. So I think we just look at once again, temper our expectations of Pablo Lopez, and who knows, maybe we luck into taking him as our SP2 and he winds up being an SP1. But we're running short on time here, so let me get through these next guys. Let's talk some Joe Ryan. Joe Ryan, another really good starting pitcher, dealt with injuries this year. If Joe Ryan is a guy who is familiar with injuries. He's dealt with them before. He's dealt with them in the minors. So another guy we have to start being a little bit careful with when we take him. Over the last 3 seasons, he has pitched 147 innings, 161, and 135. real quick, what did he get in the minors in 2022? Yeah, he only threw 4 innings in the minors in 2022. So, that only gets him a little over 150. So he hasn't thrown a lot of innings the past few years due to injury. But when Joe Ryan's out there, he's really good. Let me read off those stats. 23 starts with Joe Ryan this past season, a 3.60 ERA, 135 innings, 147 strikeouts, a 3.44 FIP, and a 0.98 WHIP. Joe Ryan is known for his control. He has really, really good control. He has George Kirby-ish control, right? So I think the thing with a guy like Joe Ryan is, and he's still fairly young. He's going to be, he's a little older than I thought. 29 next year for Joe Ryan. I think he's a guy, if he can stay on the mound, give us 175 innings, we could be talking about a guy that's, touching around 200 strikeouts, that can give you a low to mid threes ERA, and he can give you a really good whip. So let's think of like a Logan Gilbert. And, we're going to have to take Logan Gilbert this next season as a top 10, maybe as top 5 starting pitcher for some people. I have Joe Ryan ranked as one spot ahead of Pablo Lopez as my 17th starting pitcher for 2025. And I think there's a world where we don't even have to pay that high for him. Where are we taking Joe Ryan last year? Joe Ryan was coming off the board last year as SP25, pick 82. I love that. I will take Joe Ryan as my SP3 all day next year. So, you know what? Let's just leave it there, because I really do like me some Joe Ryan going into 2025. Just need to be careful with those injuries. Like, I wouldn't take a Ryan and a Glass now and make a rotation built like that. But once again, you want to get a little bit more of a stable rotation if you want to do the Joe Ryan thing. Let's move on to another starting pitcher that I really like, but I didn't draft a lot of him last year. It's Bailey Ober. The helium on Bailey Ober got a little bit crazy for me. I really liked Bailey Ober, and I thought I was going to be the bullish guy on him. And maybe I just talked him up so much that, that's what it wound up becoming. But let's see, where did we have to take Bailey Ober? I just remember being a lot higher than I wanted to be. So it was SP40 for Bailey Ober, but I think by the time draft season came around, he was creeping up around the early 30s. So I like Bailey Ober. Let's go over the season. I know he had like 2 really bad starts. One was like 8 earned runs, one was like 9 earned runs, and that really inflated the ERA, which was at a 3.98 this past season for Ober through his 31 starts, 178 innings, 191 strikeouts, and a clean 1 whip. Bailey Ober is another guy that's good with his control, and there's a really good season here, Bailey Ober. There's a low 3s ERA with lots of strikeouts and a really good whip in Bailey Ober too. I'm not sure where the market's going to be on Ober, but I have Ober lower than Lopez and Ryan. I have Ober at SP29. Another dude that I think he can make a good SP3. If I can get him as my SP4, I'm going to be loving it. I'll have a lot of Bailey Ober if he's my SP4. But we'll see. We'll see, though, with Ober, because you know what? He's a guy that really does have good stuff. He's a big dude. He's like 6'9", right? If I remember correctly. Yeah, 6'9", 260. So Bailey Ober, in theory, could be a guy who could just go out there and eat innings, if he could just stay healthy and that arm could hold up. I think there's a path. I think there's a way. Just to talk about the repertoire, which we didn't do on Ryan, but we'll do it here on Ober. The changeup got a lot better results this past season than it did last year. His fastball actually got hit worse too, so maybe that's like a Twins thing. Maybe I should have looked at Joe Ryan for that one. Definitely going to do it off the air. Joe Ryan's cutter got hit. Actually, the cutter was new. The cutter was new for Joe Ryan this year, so maybe we axe that. Maybe we get rid of the cutter and we go with the slider, which was actually really good, and it was okay for him last year too. So with Bailey Ober, I'm going to be looking to see if that cutter is still around going into 2025. If it is, maybe that's where we say, okay, you know what? Maybe he's not going to break out the way that some of us thought he was going to, and especially since Ober is a little bit older, going to be 29 next year. We'll see. That's going to be a spring training one. I'll keep you guys posted on that one, but I still like Ober. I'll still definitely have some shares next year. Let's move on to the closer. Let's talk about Johan Duran, another guy that I feel like just disappointed me this year. I really thought he was going to break out and just be like a top 5 closer, but, didn't do that this year. The ERA went up over a whole run for Johan Duran. In 2023, that ERA was a 2.45. It went up to a 3.64 this past season. He lost 4 saves from 2023 to 2024. 27 saves for Duran in 23, 23 saves in 24 for Duran. 54 innings this past year with 66 strikeouts and a 1.16 whip for Duran. The FIP was a 2.85, so it says that he did deserve better. And this kid's just a young flamethrower, and I think we see the true breakout next year. I'm not going to lie to you. A lot of the underlying stuff looks really, really good for Johan Duran. Kind of want to look at the pitch mix here. The fastball got rocked. The fastball got rocked this year. 40% of the time he threw it, it was getting hit at a 296 clip. Last year, Duran threw the fastball more. He threw it at 45% of the time, and it got hit at a 213 clip. So I think that's it right there. It's the fastball. He's got to work on that fastball. It seems like batters were seeing it a lot better than he was. Than they were last year. And let's see. No, even if you're looking at where he was throwing it in the zone, it looks like he was still sitting, in that upper right-hand side of the zone. So I don't see a difference there, but he's only going to be 27 next years old. And a kid that averages 100 mile an hour on that fastball, I think he can figure it out. Before we move, I'll have Johan Duran as probably a top 5 closer going into next year still. But let's move on to the top prospect, and then we're going to wrap things up. Let's talk about Walker Jenkins. We've talked about Walker Jenkins a little bit on this podcast. According to MLB.com, he's the number 2 overall prospect in all of baseball, but I wouldn't be shocked if a lot of people have him as the number 1 prospect overall in all of baseball. Walker Jenkins is 19 years old. Once again, he plays for these Twins. He's 6'3", 210, has plus power, has a plus hit tool. He could run a little bit. He can field. This kid's just a really, really good prospect, and he went through 4 levels last year as a 19-year-old Walker Jenkins did. He struggled a little bit in AA, but that was only through 6 games. He was very good at every other level. I'm just going to read you off the stats total for Walker Jenkins this past season. 82 games, 6 homers, 17 steals. The kid's got a lot of power. As I mentioned to you, 6'3", 210. He's going to grow into this big man body. He's going to be an absolute stud. So if you're in those keeper dynasty leagues and, you got off season trading, I would go after Walker Jenkins. I'm going to try and do that in some of my leagues and see if you can snag him now before the hype really does get out of control come spring training time. But guys, that's all for today. Please like, subscribe, comment, rate, and review. Shout out to our everydayers and new listeners making Locked On Fantasy Baseball your first listen each and every day. But guys, until tomorrow, I'll see you.